morning. You may be seated. How are you today? I hope you are all well. We are so glad to be here, and I'm going to get my correct score sheet so that I don't make a mistake. My name is Pat Skorkowski, and I'm the superintendent of Clark County School District. I'm going to let my fellow judges introduce themselves.
I'm Nancy Seda. I'm a justice of the Supreme Court.
I'm Jerry Palaha. I'm a district court judge for Washoe County.
And I'm Bob Seal. I'm the former state treasurer for Nevada and also an assemblyman, and this was my seat.
Well, this morning we have Unit 6, and so you can pull up your materials for question number 2. We're going to begin with that. So I'll give you a second to do that while I read it out loud. Question number 2, what are the major issues in the current debates in Congress about immigration and citizenship? How is citizenship defined in the 14th Amendment, and how has that definition altered the relationship between the nation and the states? Should the 14th Amendment be changed to reflect additional or different criteria for citizenship? Explain and justify your response. You may begin.
Citizenship is beyond a piece of paper. It is the opportunity to live, to be engaged, to be seen as equal. According to DREAM activist leader Gabby Pacheco, in 2010, 40.4 million immigrants were living in the United States, making up 13% of the population, 11 million of which were here illegally. The Border Security, Economic Opportunity, and Immigration Modernization Act of 2013, passed by the Senate, would create a 13-year path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants.
The act would double Border Patrol to prevent more illegal immigration, while increasing domestic enforcement through programs such as an E-Verify system to track immigrant workers and expansion of due process protections. Despite the overwhelming bipartisan support of the bill in the Senate, Speaker of the House, John Boehner, stated that the idea that we're going to take up a 1,300-page bill that no one had ever read is not going to happen in the House, thus making it clear that no comprehensive immigration reform will occur this session.
The proposed Senate bill highlights 3 major issues in the debates over immigration and citizenship: border control, economic effects, and the naturalization process. Although heightened security would not affect immigrants already living in the United States, it would prevent millions more from entering the country. However, increased security also creates an economic burden on government. The proposed Senate bill devotes $4.5 billion annually to border security.
When considering the cost of border control, though, we also must take into account the financial effects of undocumented immigration. Nevada alone spends over $630 million per year providing services to illegal residents. However, both undocumented and legal residents contribute to the economic growth of the country. Between 2000 and 2007, immigration accounted for more than 1/6 of the increase of our total civilian labor force, according to Alan Greenspan, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Originally, the Constitution mentioned citizenship 11 times without specifically defining it. Although many of the founders initially agreed with Governor Morris's desire to create a national definition of citizenship and suffrage on the basis of property ownership, they ultimately embraced Benjamin Franklin's more optimistic assessment of the virtue of average Americans and left citizenship up to the states to decide, as implied in the Privileges and Immunities Clause in Article 4 and the reserved powers in the 10th Amendment.
It wasn't until the addition of the 14th Amendment that a uniform definition of citizenship was created. All persons, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. This has led to the increased tension between national and state governments due to the overlapping or contradictory policies. In the 2012 case, Arizona v. United States, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Justice Department's claim of federal preemption and overruled an Arizona immigration policy, citing the Supremacy Clause in Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution.
The 14th Amendment should not be changed to reflect different or additional criteria for citizenship because, as Paul Ryan stated in a 2013 town hall meeting, changing the Constitution is merely treating a symptom, rather than addressing the larger issue of illegal immigration. Instead of changing the 14th Amendment, the individual issues of immigration in the United States, such as children born to mothers here legally, commonly called anchor babies, border control, and the naturalization process, must be addressed legislatively, either through a comprehensive approach such as the Senate bill, or a piecemeal approach, as supported by Speaker of the House, John Boehner.
Cal Jillson wrote in his book, Pursuing the American Dream, that the American dream is a constant reminder that the true nature and distinctive grandeur of America is in promising the common man a better chance to succeed here than anywhere else on earth. Proponents of immigration reform are attempting to do exactly that. Uphold the promise of the American dream for all people in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have some follow-up questions for you, so I'll defer to my judges and we'll all jump in.
I have a comment based on what I heard, and the comment I heard was directed at a comment made by Boehner, talking about passing the immigration bill without having read it. And if there is a 1,300-page proposed legislation and no one has read it, doesn't it only seem reasonable that, I mean, we've experienced the Affordable Care Act where Ms. Pelosi said, well, you have to pass it before we find out what's in it. I mean, is that the state of our legislative branches, and should it be?
Well, I would say that it definitely should not be the state of our legislature, but unfortunately at this point it is. Having only passed 48 bills in 2013, it does seem somewhat unlikely, A, that they would be able to pass all of the different issues that we need. So using a piecemeal approach, it would seem unlikely that they could pass every single issue that we need. However, it also seems equally unlikely that they would be willing to read a comprehensive bill such as the 1,300-page bill.
If they condensed it down, they would leave out so many different little parts of this big issue for the United States. So that 1,300 pages is necessary, but it's also very time-consuming to read.
We, as educators, we take in any student that comes in our doors. And we focus, and a big topic right now is cultural diversity and cultural responsiveness, so that we acknowledge the cultures that are in our students that they bring forward. So should we be doing this, or should we just focus on the American culture?
Yes, in 1968, there was an amendment added to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that gave public schools additional funding to support English as second language classes.
Well, as former President George H.W. Bush stated, immigration is not only a link to our past, it is also a bridge to our future. And so I would definitely say that embracing diversity within our schools is a key issue that we need to focus on, just because in Nevada especially, we have a huge immigrant population, excuse me. And so actually embracing that within our schools and educating students about it so that there aren't the stereotypes about different races of students is extremely important.
Additionally, as we can see with the passing of the Supreme Court case Plyler v. Doe, immigrants are entitled to public school education.
Doesn't this put a significant burden on us financially in whatever state that we happen to be? That now we've got these immigrants that are coming in and beginning to use the resources that our citizens should have.
Yes, it does. When California was trying to pass Proposition 187, they cited the reason for this was because they spent $1 billion annually on public schooling for illegal immigrants. However, the proposition was deemed unconstitutional because we cannot deny public schooling to illegal immigrants.
So then shouldn't all children born in the United States just automatically become citizens? Do you agree or disagree?
Sorry, repeat that?
Shouldn't all children born in the United States automatically become citizens? Why or why not?
I would say that yes, they definitely should be, because that's exactly what the 14th Amendment states, that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens.
Even if they come across borders or into our country illegally,
If they're
i.e. with their parents? Or their parents come illegally first?
I would say that yes. In 2011, the United States Congress attempted to pass the Birthright Citizenship Act, which would limit the 14th Amendment to only children whose parents were legal immigrants, illegal immigrants who were serving in the armed forces, or nationals of the United States. However, I don't think that that's really fair, because a lot of times, as we've seen with the DREAM Act, it's not the children's choice to come to the United States. It's not their choice to be born here. It was the parents' choice, and it's not fair to punish the children for that.
Most of the immigrants that come to the United States do want to come to the United States to become a citizen, but also to become more educated about the world around them and the economics of different cultures and different countries around the world.
We have seen in Canada where you have the French separatists, in Belgium where they're breaking away the Germans and the French speakers, and in Iraq you got the Kurds and the Shiites and the Sunnis. That is an acknowledgement of diversity. Are you espousing when we say cultural diversity to that extent? Or do we still have to acknowledge that America ought to be, as it has been in the past, a blend of the ingredients?
So I think what you're referring to is the Federalist 10 of factions, different communities.
If you want your
among-
separate identity, I'm Slovak and the heck with you.
Yeah.
Germans killed us during the war. We
Yeah.
don't like you. I mean, we could perpetuate that, or we could say, hey, we're Americans. I mean,
So-
where does it come in? Where's the blend?
I would say that we don't want a homogeneous, but we want diversity, not necessarily factions, but like parts of a whole country.
I would definitely say that one of the issues that comes along with diversity, as we've seen with affirmative action, is that oftentimes promoting diversity actually suppresses diversity as well. So a lot of people would argue that my opportunity as a Caucasian student might be hindered by the programs such as affirmative action simply because I'm not technically a minority. However, I think that there can be a balance between promoting and suppressing diversity in the United States.
Along with diversity, I think the issue of dual citizenship often comes up, and I strongly believe dual citizenship is an advantage, something that we have in the United States because it brings in the term globalization, and everyone is connected and everyone in some way has something to add to our country.
Executives in Germany, France, and Great Britain have declared that multiculturalism is dead in the European Union. However, I do not think that is so for the United States. Multiculturalism is still thriving here.
So as again, I go back to education because that's my field of that, and that's what you're in right now. So as we look at this, should there be an assessment for our students that measures their knowledge of our own country and as an exit exam requirement? Let's add on another test for the high school proficiency. Should I do that or not? Should we push for that? Or should I push for end of course exams to include social studies so that we can measure knowledge of the topics you're talking about?
I took We the People at Reno High School to further my education and further my knowledge of the government, because all throughout high school I never really understood it completely, but actually being engaged in this class specifically, that yes, I would want to take a test to exit high school to know if I'm ready for the real world.
I would love to see another component added to the standardized testing. I mean, as much as we all dislike standardized testing, but especially with the addition of the Common Core standards that are being implemented in Nevada, I would definitely like to propose another component of the testing to just show off that our students actually are well-rounded in both civic education and math and science and English, so that we definitely have a better, well-rounded population of students exiting our high schools.
Clearly, as extraordinary students, I'm not surprised to hear your response to the superintendent's question. But here's another question. Should all Americans be required to demonstrate their knowledge of American history and government as naturalized citizens must do in order to become citizens?
Yes, I do. It's because we don't want people we want to further everyone's education as a whole for the common good, so that everyone is an educated citizen of the United States.
Additionally, me and my fellow Unit 6, Maddie Ecker, we took a naturalization test to see if we could pass it. We looked it up online. And it's extensive, and the things that they need to know in order to become a naturalized citizen, I could possibly say that over half of Americans could not pass that test. I definitely think that we should have a test to further show that we have the knowledge within ourselves.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not putting you off the hot seat yet. We're going to give you a little feedback, and then we can do the handshake. Take a deep breath, because you guys did a great job. And what I like is that you really focused in on answering our questions and not just trying to get in specific citations and things like that. You actually thought about the question and then answered the question. I think that's extremely powerful. Too many times in these situations, you're trying to make sure you get that piece of information in, but you actually wove it in to the answers, and so I appreciate that. Great.
So I have a question. Do you think we could pass the naturalization test?
I think we could. I hope we can. I hope we can.
I asked you that, didn't I? Your depth of knowledge, your ability to move from one subject to another by thoughtful transition and listening to our questions was very obvious. And so you really did a fine job. You should be very, very proud of yourself. And quite frankly, I suspect that you know more about this particular area of government, if you will, than many of us. And you should be very proud of that. Your thirst for education, I hope, will continue.
I agree with my colleagues here. You did a very, very fine job. And we didn't stick to a script, and we bounced around with our questions, and you responded very well. You responded with the knowledge collectively, pointing to support in other areas, and it was sound reasoning, and congratulations, you really, very, very good job.
Thank you.
And let me assure you that I'm delighted that I didn't have to take before I became an assemblyman. I'm afraid I might not have passed. And just for those on the panel, when it comes to long bills and reading them, I have to admit that I didn't read every bill that I voted on. And that's because they were in committee, and the committee reviewed them, and then I followed their suit. And I can understand why someone wouldn't read 1,300 pages of garbage.
Sounds like a brief to me.
Judges have to read everything.
Well, and the other thing that you need to be proud of is that your teacher prepared you well. So I want to commend you for that. It's not easy when you walk in at the beginning of the year and you look at the class that you have, trying to figure out how you put these teams together. And I know that it is challenging, and so it is appreciated, because I know it is extra time and effort on your part to do this. And so greatly appreciate that. Greatly appreciate you being able to synthesize information and make a stand, which is going to be essential to your success in the future. So thank you so much for everything. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.